Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Fintech Fridays. As usual and always, I'm Brian Vieaux, President, Chief Operating Officer at FinLocker, and super excited to have Elizabeth Dodson from HomeZada join us today. Welcome to my humble little podcast, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Brian, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I've been tracking your platform and
hmm
have kind of had you on the radar to come on and learn a little bit more. And as you know, on these podcasts, what I do here is I learn about
hmm
cool products and people and technology. And as I'm learning, my audience of millions gets to learn as well. So that's what we're all about. But we've got a couple cool things that we're going to talk about. You and I uh, met formally face to face at a
Yeah,
recent event, which we'll come back to in a minute.
sure.
Um, and I think we kind of quickly saw a path where we're sort of in the same zone in
hmm
terms of what we're trying to solve for. Um, you're focused on one part of the
Yeah,
aspect of the relationship, and we are on another. And I think there's some cool stuff to connect the dots on. But let's start by sharing a little bit about your story, because I think you've got a
sure.
good story about kind of how you got to where you got, and then we can talk about
Yeah,
the HomeZada platform and product.
perfect. So I came in, so I've been in tech all my life. So just sheer coincidental. And then grew up on the East Coast as well, and it's kind of relevant, and now live on the West Coast in Northern California. And another tech company actually brought me to Northern California, and that tech company was all about commercial construction project management software. And a lot of people are like, what's that got to do with anything? A lot. And so when you are managing large buildings and the construction of those buildings, there's a lot of details you have to manage. Everything from humans to supplies to documents to communications and a variety of other topics that you have to manage on those job sites that are extremely important. And that information has to then roll up to the corporation so that they can properly manage their budgets for each project and understand where there could be some risks. And let's face it, those margins on commercial projects are extremely thin. So you got to figure that
Yeah.
out. So it was during that time at that wonderful company that one of my co-founders at HomeZada started, and we grew that company. We bootstrapped it. We grew it. We took late stage funding and some strategic funding from some uh, customers, and then sold that company to a wonderful company to continue to manage it. That I had the idea of HomeZada. And HomeZada is all about managing your house in the cloud. And let's face it, most ideas for companies come out of personal frustration. Mine is no
Yeah.
different. I complained for 10 years, 10 years about why do I not know what's going on in my house? Why is it that I can't remember where all the maintenance is? Why don't I have a system that just reminds me? Why is it that I can't figure out where my money's going? And why am I wasting all my time? And furthermore, I had two houses, once going back to that East Coast. I had
Yeah.
an East Coast house and a West Coast house, all with different seasonalities, all with different materials being used. And one had a renter in it, one didn't. It was crazy town. And I am doing all of this from basically Excel spreadsheets,
Yeah.
paper all over my house in probably 10 to 15 different locations, arguments with my husband over who's going to change air filters, which to me is so silly. And also just understanding where the documents are, where the information is. And there was no good reporting system that came out of that to help me understand and project for the future. So, how can I budget for the future if I don't know what I've done?
Right.
And so, all of this was missing, and I was really frustrated. Therefore, once we sold the previous company, some of us did fairly well. And then three of the employees of the previous company, Meridian Systems, decided to start HomeZada. And HomeZada is a digital home management platform that helps people manage areas of their home, like tracking an inventory for insurance or estate planning purposes, tracking a maintenance calendar to get those reminders so you never forget when those maintenance tasks need to be done, managing projects so you don't have to be over budget. And we do that in a variety of ways. And then finally, managing all the finances of the home so you get a total cost of home ownership. And that's really important because when you're ready to sell that home, you can take a subset of this data and give it to the new homeowner, and then they can continue to manage that information as well. If you have multiple homes, you can manage those with HomeZada, and you can also manage any income that's coming in as well. Now, in additional to what we do for the homeowner, and one of the reasons why I was at the Fintech conference is because we also support our partners. And so we have a product called HomeZada Professional that allows any of our partners to either one, give the gift of HomeZada to their customers with their branding inside the system, or to enter data on behalf of their customers and then transfer that information so the customer can then continue to manage their home however they see fit.
Love it. Now, maybe give an example of a couple of those partners that are doing that. I could imagine the real estate professional is definitely one, right?
Yeah, so when you think about giving a gift of HomeZada, definitely the real estate community, and that real estate community can be an agent, a broker, it can be a mortgage lender or broker, it can be
Yep.
or loan officer, it could be a insurance agency or agent, and even the corporation as well at that level. So those organizations all are in a similar situation in that, and I think we've talked about this, Brian, that they really need to connect with their customers beyond the initial transaction of securing a loan or a policy or a house. And how do they stay in touch with them in unique and valuable ways? Well, HomeZada can help them do that as well as your own products. And then at the same time, companies that would enter in data on behalf of the customers, think of boutique industries like professional organizers or home inventory professionals, because they do exist. Think about maintenance contractors or remodeling contractors that want to work on a project and then make sure that they get it to their customer. Think of a home builder. Home builders today give physical binders of paper, which is a turnover package, whereas HomeZada allows them to give a digital turnover package with reminders in the system on when those maintenance tasks have to be conducted, which also helps with warranty periods with the homeowner and also the builder.
I love that. You hit on a couple. I'm a homeowner, right? And we've had our home built 21, 22 years ago. So we're in that zone 21, 22 years into it where stuff's happening. Not all good, right? And so I'm just thinking about warranty is a great one, right? Because you got a warranty on your roof, and you've got warranties on the furnace and the air conditioners and the water, all these different components, each with its own warranty, with its own time horizon.
Yes.
It's impossible. And when you said it, right before you said it, managing it on Excel, that's kind of my go-to, right? That's like, that was Fintech before there was Fintech. It was managing it on Excel, or before that, Lotus 1, 2, 3, right? And I'm thinking about it in the context of first-time home buyers who have no idea of all the stuff that's ahead of them. And so, super cool concept. Maybe let's talk a little bit about like some of the, let's get in the weeds a little bit and talk about how do you connect the dots on my HomeZada account and my furnace and my air conditioner and my refrigerator that now has a filter that needs to be replaced from time to time. Let's talk a little bit about that.
That's great. So the first thing that we invite all of our customers to do is to set up a basic home inventory. If they give us the number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, and the type of home they have, meaning a condo versus a single family, et cetera, then we will predict the generic spaces and the generic items in those spaces. And items come in two flavors for HomeZada. The first is personal possessions. And the personal possessions will be something that goes into a moving truck.
Yep.
The second is the fixed assets or the structural components of the house. That's the equipment, like you were talking about, furnaces. It's the appliances. It's walls, it's doors, anything that will stay with the physical structure. And for those people on the phone, it's the house when you move into it, when you don't bring anything into it yet.
Yeah.
And so most of the time, especially on the equipment and the appliances and a lot of structural situations, you need to perform maintenance. Your personal possessions don't always need a ton of maintenance. Maybe you have a high-end cappuccino maker and that does, or a vacuum cleaner that is super special that may need care.
Yep.
But for the most part, your physical structural house and its components need care and maintenance. So you talked about a furnace, HVAC units. They should be checked every 2 years. We will set up a maintenance calendar that reflects what's in your house. And so if you live in a condo, you may not have an HVAC system. It may be controlled by the building. But if you're in a home, then you will have an HVAC system that you have to manage. So we will remind you to check it every 6 months with a preferred professional,
Yep.
so that it extends the life of that unit, and that includes the furnaces. Or you can make the minor repairs along the way that are low cost, that will also extend the life of the furnace and or the HVAC equipment. I'm just using this as an example because we brought it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And when it's time to replace it, you'll understand when it's time to do that, and you can save the appropriate budget, and you can start preparing that project for that HVAC system, because they are not cheap. They're
Yeah.
expensive. And so how do you prepare for that? Same thing with a roof. Making sure you check your roof regularly, and also inside your attics, because people forget to do that, because that will determine if you have problems with your roof, is important. But people don't think to do it. So HomeZada then takes you through the maintenance aspect, and the maintenance calendar is automatically set up with the common maintenance tasks that everybody needs to manage. And they can add and edit to the calendar, meaning they can move calendar items around, saying, and a good example is both you and I, Brian, live in California. We've had a lot of rain this year.
I wish I was in California.
Oh, you're not right now.
And I'm not.
Sorry.
But
Sorry for that.
I'm gonna reference where I live in a moment and ask you a question. But
Okay.
yeah, you guys have had
So
a
we've
ton
had
of
a
rain.
ton of rain, which is odd this time of year, and it's still going. And so what happens is, because we've had so much rain, our ability to do springtime checks in March has been pushed out. So
Yeah.
now we're into April and May when we're doing this. So in HomeZada's maintenance calendar, you can just move the dates. And that's exactly what I did in my own calendar. I'm like, well, I don't want people cleaning my windows when it's going to rain again in another month. So I'll wait. And I've already got it scheduled. And I'm like on a safe bet. And then once you have these maintenance checks, you can make sure you identify whether you've completed it or not. And then
Right.
when you know you've completed it, the system will remember when it needs to be done again. And it will remind you the following year, or the
So
following 2 years, 7 years, 6 months, etc.
so if we equate it to another thing that has to get maintenance, your vehicle, right?
Oh, yes.
Every vehicle now that we own, or that we bought in the
Hmm.
last probably 5+ years, you still get the handy dandy little sticker, right? It's right
Hmm.
there in front of you. But now your vehicle is wired to tell you
Hmm.
automatically when your next maintenance is, for changing the oil, as an example. So this is kind of the similar concept. You're
Yes.
using automation technology to simplify, optimize the management of your largest asset, most likely,
Yeah.
which is your home, right? So now let me get to my regional question. So
Okay.
I'm in Michigan, the
Oh,
upper
okay.
Midwest,
Cold.
and yeah, and so we have to deal with this thing called winter, right?
Yes.
And uh, so twice a year, I have to bring out my irrigation people to blow out and winterize, and then open
Hmm.
up and get it going. So that's another element of things you can schedule, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
is irrigation and other outdoor type tasks and maintenance items. Is that fair?
Yeah. So in HomeZada, we actually have, if you tell us where you're located, for instance, Michigan versus California, we'll add a few more tasks to your
Yeah.
calendar in Michigan than you will in California, because you do have to go through winter aspects. even just making sure there's no ice dams on your roofs and what have you, because it's
Right.
very dangerous. So making sure that's covered. And going back to your point, you can also add as many tasks as you want that you may personalize your home. So think about, I don't know, I'm going to go all the way to Massachusetts. Massachusetts has homes that are what, 200 years old?
Yeah.
Those are historical homes. Those homes need a different level of care than what the traditional home needs. So they may need to add additional tasks inside HomeZada specific for their historical home. We also have clients that choose to add items like I've got pets. And so I've got customers that have horses that need to be reshoed. They'll add those types of things in there. People who have
I love
dogs who
it.
need to be trimmed, they'll add those types of things in there. So
Yeah.
it's whatever people consider home and just a better management tool to get them what they need. The furthermore, one of the things that HomeZada does provide as well is we'll put a subset of tasks on your calendar to get you started, but we also have a library of 150 more inside the system that you can simply review and go, I need that, I need that, I need that, and just add it to your calendar.
So you hit on something that's kind of near and dear to my heart here in terms of personal finance with what we do at
Yes.
FinLocker. There too many people think about, especially first time home buyers, they get fixated on how much it's going to cost me to buy the home and then
Yes.
what's my payment, and maybe most of them are considering inside their payment, the taxes and insurance, right? And
Hmm.
for a lot of these first time home buyers, everything else is like a mystery.
Hmm.
And what I love about what you're describing is, now that I own the home, I already know my mortgage payment, and it's probably going to contain those items I talked about, principal and
Yep.
interest, insurance and taxes. But what else?
Hmm.
What's the rest of my annual operating cost for this home? And you've got a perfect product to really get uber organized around that,
Hmm.
which for me, when I think about one of the use cases that you described, which is a real estate professional or a mortgage lender inviting their customers into this great product as kind of a way to thank them for the relationship and extend that relationship.
Yep.
It's a preparation tool for the next
Yes.
evolution of home ownership, whether it's moving up, whether it's adding a second home. So I think it's a super cool tool that's very practical from a task perspective, as you described, but I think there's also a massive
Yeah.
financial wellness and education kind of component to it.
Truly there is. And that's part of our challenge is that one of the reasons why we also started HomeZada is we saw a lot of friends and family who didn't have construction or project management experience, and they were struggling with how to manage their projects and their finances. And so we built in templates inside HomeZada to help people understand the items and the tasks they need to do in which order in order to finish projects, which is really important because, as we talked
Yeah.
about, preparation is key. And if you don't have preparation, then your projects can get out of whack. And then when it comes to
Yeah.
finances within HomeZada, one of the things that we do, talking directly to what you were saying about preparation, is HomeZada brings in data that through our own algorithms that talks to based on the county that you're going to be living in. And this is if you're considering buying a home in a different location or a second home in a different location. We will bring in the estimated cost in itemized fashion inside your financial section of HomeZada to help you understand what this house is going to cost beyond the mortgage, the insurance, the taxes. And it helps people understand, okay, what can I expect? And
Yeah.
we include things like, let's face it, there are places that have more affordable electricity and there are places that do not. I live
Yep.
in one of those places that do not. And then there are
Yeah.
places that have good Wi-Fi and there are not. They may have to use a different system. And all these different things are play a role. So we incorporate all of that into the financial section of HomeZada. And then homeowners can choose to track more details involved in your finances. For instance, if you want to
Yeah.
know granularly based on your mortgage data, when it's going to be paid off. You can see that graphically inside the system. If you want to know whether
Love it.
your insurance premiums and your coverage covers the contents in your home and the structure of your home based on values changing in your home, you can do that inside HomeZada. And the system will say, maybe you need to have a conversation with your insurance provider if you're not covered. The other thing we'll do
Yeah.
is touching base on mortgages, which is, or excuse me, insurance, which is also another thing people forget about. Most people will do a project and they forget to tell their insurance company. And so they've updated this brand new kitchen, these bathrooms with brand new appliances and all these beautiful things. And they forget to tell them. And then something happens to their house and
Yeah,
they get
it's
covered
not
for the
covered.
previous.
Right.
Exactly. It's horrible. So we want to make sure that everyone has as much awareness as they prefer. And that's why HomeZada is completely flexible. They can add a few photos or they can add 5,000 photos. It's entirely up to them. It's unlimited photos, unlimited documents, unlimited videos.
Love it. So a couple questions, and then I want to
Yeah.
get into the fintech meetup event.
Yeah.
So if I, as a real estate professional, invited you, Elizabeth, to this HomeZada
Mhm.
product, once you're in it and using it as a
Mhm.
consumer, what do I see on the other end? Like what kind of
Yep.
signals do I get as, the realtor that provided that to you, or don't I? This is evidence that
Yeah.
I'm truly learning about your product on the
Yeah.
fly here.
It's perfect. So, if there's a variety of ways that this can happen. So, if you're a real estate professional and you give the gift of HomeZada, then you will have a record of who you gave it to inside the system, and you've transferred it completely to the customer. The customer then takes on the responsibility of managing the rest of their property. The information you will see is exactly that they have accepted your gift, and
Yep.
that's it. And part of
Yep.
that is really important because homeowners need to know that their data is protected.
Yes.
And that's the number one thing that has come back over many years with our customers. They want to know you're not selling my data, and we are not, which is
Yeah.
why there's also a subscription fee to HomeZada.
Yep.
So that's the first thing. The second possibility, though, for other partners who are entering in data on behalf of their customers. So a good example is a house manager. A house manager may be managing a house or several houses on behalf of their customer in various locations. They want to invite their customer in to manage the houses alongside of the house manager. Even if the
Yeah, I
house
like
manager
that.
would be a primary manager of the property, they all have visibility. And that's what we refer to as a shared component within HomeZada Professional. Now, everybody will see all of the data in the system and everybody will have edit rights at
Yep.
this present moment. As we continue to grow as an organization, there will be different security models that we can add into
Sure.
the system where people can say, no, we're going to only have you have read write, et cetera,
Yeah.
rights, et cetera. But for now, everyone can actually collaborate together, which is also extremely valuable because people can figure out who's doing what, where, when. And that's
Yeah.
also good for spouses when they're using the consumer version. You can
Yeah.
always invite your spouses. And some people don't like that because then the honey-do list continues to grow, but it's available to both.
Yeah, I'm imagining my digital task list. I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't add those 12 things. What the heck happened here?
It's funny though. I'll tell you something that we learned with our focus groups over the years. The men in our focus groups don't like the maintenance because they feel that it's going to just generally get bigger. The women don't like the inventory. They're like, well, I don't think I want my husband to know what I've been purchasing. It's the most funny thing.
Yeah, I could totally get that. And that spurs another question. So the inventory thing
Mhm.
has so much value. Sadly, probably a lot of value when there's
Mhm.
a life event that
Yeah,
happens, right? So I'm guessing there's some kind of utility around, when you have that inventory, can you share,
you
can you
can.
can you export or create an
Yeah.
export and share that with.
There's so many things you can do
Yeah,
with your inventory. So the first thing that you
yeah,
can do is you can actually print a PDF and or convert to Excel and share it with your insurance company, your other providers, whatever the case may be. And
love
that's
it.
your choice as a customer of HomeZada's. And Another thing that can be done with HomeZada, because it came from some of our older customers, they had requested this. So there's several fields in an inventory item that you can say, who do I want this? Who do I want to leave this to upon my passing? And then why? And so any details that you have. And then a separate PDF can be printed for estate planning purposes.
I
So
love it.
our estate planning attorneys and our financial planners love this aspect of HomeZada as well, because if you print a PDF from HomeZada with your inventory and or your estate planning inventory, it is not a legally binding document. However, if you give that estate planning inventory to your estate planning attorney, they can then make it a legally binding document, and that becomes your personal contents allocation on their forms.
That's
So
brilliant.
those things do happen, and it was something so simple we could add. So we decided to do it, and our customers love it. In
Yeah, I mean,
fact, HomeZada solved a crime because of
oh my
that.
God, go figure. So that, I mean, there's so much there. We could
Mhm.
probably have three of these episodes and go into the details. This has been really helpful, but I want to circle back to this event you and I were at
Yeah.
back in March.
Hmm.
Um, it was FinTech Meetup.
Hmm.
Um, and I'd love to just get your kind of thoughts on the
Yeah.
overall event. For those not aware, FinTech Meetup is a newer annual conference. I think this was the first in-person
Yes.
version of the product. I think it started during the pandemic, so the first
Yep.
couple years was virtual. Um, Over 3,500
Yeah.
attendees, a lot of cool fintechs like HomeZada, FinLocker, and others were
Hmm.
there. Some wonderful community banks and credit unions and other
Hmm.
financial services providers were there. Um, Tell us your perspective of the event,
Yeah.
uh, and then one, in particular, kind of the speed dating round
Oh
of
yeah.
things, how that went for you.
Yeah. So first of all, the event I thought was extremely well put on. I mean, they did a great job, especially for someone who's doing an event this big. This organization did an event that was really big that used a lot of space. Coincidentally, we were in the Aria Hotel for people who are not aware. That was in Las Vegas, and it had a lot of levels. And they found a way to make the best of all the different resources that they had. And for other people who were not there, they did have a general session, they did have track sessions, they did have an exhibit hall, and they did have this speed dating. And I've done speed dating before at conferences, and I find it amazing. And part of the reason why I find it amazing is you connect with your LinkedIn profile, which also helps people understand who you are and whether they can do their research before showing up. Two, you put in what you are requesting, and then what you're interested in, and then vice versa. The other party do the same thing. And you get to understand who you could potentially meet with. And then obviously the attendee list is then exposed to everybody. And then you put in your wish list. Now, the system itself allows and marries people together based on priorities and based on what they're looking for in each other, and then also based on times and table allocation. Here's what I thought was amazing about this event. There were 600, no, 800 tables, wasn't it?
Yeah, 800. I think it
800.
was. Yeah, it was like eight something, 850. It was crazy.
I've never been to one that big. Like, and for anyone who's, we don't have a visual for you guys, but literally it was a giant hall and all these 800 tables, and it was kind of split up into two halls because it was so many. And they were in sections, they had them well labeled, and you had 15 minutes to talk and meet with people, which is the perfect amount of time, especially if you're an East Coaster, you can cut to the chase and go, here's who I am. Who are you? Do we have a relationship? Can we work together? Maybe we can't. Maybe we can. And then if we can't, that's great. It was great meeting you. What are you looking for? Maybe I can connect you to some other people and vice versa. And
Yeah,
that's how we met. And I find those programs so amazing because you really get to meet a lot of people. And the event had some great sessions as well. And I was
yeah.
able to attend some of those. And the exhibit floor had some amazing people on the exhibit floor as well. So I was able to see that. And then, not to mention, let's face it, I got my tarot cards read while I was on the exhibit floor. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, they had some fun. They had a lot of fun stuff in the
Hmm.
exhibit hall. Yeah, I would say
They
I
did.
just like you. I do a ton of conferences, conventions. Most of mine in my career have been kind of in the mortgage industry.
Hmm.
Um, and I came back. I think I did a LinkedIn post or two on this. I would
You
say in the
did.
last 10 years, this particular event was the most well constructed, well organized, well thought out. And then for me, in my current kind of place in life with our business and what we're trying to do, the most productive and easily in 10 years.
Yeah.
And a big part of it was that those speed dating rounds. So I think there was 4 sessions over 2 days where
Yeah.
you'd have 6 back-to-backs or 8 back-to-backs. Um, the follow-ups that I had coming out of that from those
Hmm.
15-minute meetings. I mean, this is a follow-up. You and I
Yep.
recording a podcast, and we're going to do some other cool stuff together.
Hmm.
And I've had 20 of those other follow-ups, and what's super cool about it is those follow-ups aren't like cold call the first time
Yeah.
you're meeting somebody, right? There's been in that 15 minutes you determine there's enough there that we should go a layer deeper.
Hmm.
And so the follow-up conversations are super productive, super valuable for me. That not all of them are going to end up in a biz dev
Yeah.
relationship, but many of those have already uh, led to, hey, you should talk to such and such. They're looking for what
Exactly.
you're doing. So it's just a great overall experience. I would encourage anybody that's watching this. I don't care what business you're in.
Hmm.
We're all in fintech at the end of the day
Yeah.
today in 2023. This is an event you need to put on the calendar and at least
Hmm.
give it a look and try to fit it into your budget for 2024. I think it's the first week of March in
Yeah.
2024.
And I think also, if you're somebody who's bringing something good to the table that you want to share with everybody, also put in for a speaking opportunity. They're
Yeah,
probably looking for those right now as we're talking, and
absolutely.
it's something that they want to hear from. And then, in addition, I think one of the things we also maybe missed a little bit for those people who are looking for funding, there's a ton of investors that are
Yeah,
there as well. And going back to the speed dating, I think expectations are set. Like everybody knows what to
yeah,
expect. So it's like, all
yeah.
right, here we go. So it's fun. It was exhausting. I don't know
I
about you,
enjoyed
but it
it.
was exhausting. I was like, at the end, I
Yeah,
was like,
it
what
it
just happened?
it took me a good 2 full days to kind of recover, and then it was after those 2 days I was back into follow-up mode on all the
Exactly.
great
Hmm.
meetings. And it wasn't just the speed dating meetings. I had all kinds of like
Yep.
hallway meetings and reception meetings that are turning into something pretty cool.
Yeah, you meet great people in the hallways.
Yeah. So Elizabeth, this was a blast. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
When we post this, we'll put a link into all of Elizabeth's information and the HomeZada information. Obviously, I'm guessing homezada.com if they want to learn
Yes,
more.
that's correct.
But this has been great. I appreciate you coming on. And for everybody else, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next Friday.